Hello.
Hey, Doug.
Hey, Doug.
Sorry about any meeting confusion. Apparently it was on like half the calendars. I don't know what's happening. Try and find the notes here and pull them up. All right. How's everything going?
It's going, man.
Yeah, it's going.
It's going.
I'll echo that.
All right. We should probably wait another minute or two until.
We should probably think about moving the meeting to a more Asian-friendly time zone at some point.
Okay. Do you have a suggestion? I'm not.
So for networking, what we did was 10 a.m. Pacific, I think.
Okay. So an hour earlier than this?
Sorry, 9 a.m.
9
Pacific.
a.m.
Sorry, I got my time zones confused. 9 a.m. Pacific and 10 a.m. on MST. If that's reasonable, you might get more participation.
I think that's reasonable. I don't have any real knowledge of why. I mean, I might have to move around some other meetings, but I think I can do that. I don't know about anyone else. Are there other working groups that meet during that time or anything like that?
Not that I know of, not on Thursday.
I mean, Wednesday?
Sorry, Wednesday. Yeah, I'm still thinking about networking.
Yeah, the perf and scalability meets Wednesday at 9:30 every other week.
So we could do it.
Oh, but you guys are the opposite weeks already.
Yeah.
Never mind. You're fine.
Okay.
Somehow I attend meetings that are every week, unfortunately.
Okay. I'll send out an email, I guess, to discuss and to see if we get any objections. But otherwise, I think I'm fine, and I'll work with Dan to set that up.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I don't know that we want to wait forever, and since we have John here, maybe I'll bump you up in the agenda, unless there are objections. We can talk about. Oh.
So the one that Quad put in actually was mine. So we should discuss that also. It might be a shorter discussion than John's.
Okay.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
All right.
And actually, we might need some of his expertise right here too. So, okay.
Yeah. All right. So I can describe the problem here. So basically, what we found out yesterday, or I think Jacob found out, that while he was testing V2 telemetry, destination port now became a default set of label. So adding destination port creates two problems. One is it expands the default set of metrics and adds cardinality. Second, the way it was done, it was added by the networking working group. They changed the semantic meaning of destination port. In Mixer V1, it used to be container port. They changed it to being service port.
Right. Okay. Yep.
How can we prevent these things from getting merged going forward?
Yeah. So I think I was thinking that maybe we just need the same policy and telemetry's working group owner over the extensions directory in the Istio proxy. Is that possible to set up? John, you know?
Sorry, owner's file. Yeah, you can eliminate whatever files you want.
In other repos, other Istio repos? Is
Yeah,
that-
so each file has an owner's file that has like some paths, and you can say this specific file is owned by Doug if you wanted to.
Okay.
So you can do anything like that.
Do we do that in proxy repo?
It's in the proxy repo. Yeah, it's probably not a very specific file. It's probably just like everything's owned by the networking. Yeah, everything's owned by the data plane group.
So that would be my first suggestion, Raj, is we require a maintainer from both sides to approve, and then that would guarantee we at least get some discussion in this group for metrics changes.
That does work for this scenario. There is the other side of the problem, which is networking continuously changes pilot code in a way where policy is affected.
Do you have an example of that?
Well, black hole, for example, that was broken continuously between 1.3 and 1.4. And the only reason I was able to surface it because I know the pilot code reasonably well, and I went and changed it. So basically, when the listener's filters are set up, at least in V1, if you change the way it is set up, it affects what gets transported or what gets invoked in the V1 filter, right? I don't know how that works in V2 yet.
Isn't that more just a matter of having proper testing?
You would hope so.
I may not be the short-term fix, but that's probably like the.
Well, the problem is that when networking changes, they don't necessarily have features tests for everything.
No, what I mean is if you have a feature like black hole telemetry, and there was a test that makes sure that works, and then if networking changed it and it completely breaks, then hopefully the test would fail, and hopefully they're not just changing the test to pass, right?
So, well, it's a feature in networking that telemetry just didn't ever, I guess, have a test for. Because the
Okay, so new, yeah, that's true.
So maybe as a part of feature development networking, we need to make sure the telemetry is tested.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also maybe a conversation we take to the networking working group too? Does that sound fair, or what's the right escalation of that?
So we had a similar situation between security and networking that was a hot topic in TOC last week.
Right.
I do not want to take it to TOC.
I too would like to avoid that if possible.
Let's see. So we have two maintainers here for networking. John, you are a maintainer, right?
Yeah.
And I think Quat is a maintainer for data plane.
Yeah.
And I'm a maintainer overall, but not in the pilot code, which is the problem here. And neither of us are maintainers in pilot code. Right. Pilot is only Kostin and Sriram, it looks like.
And me and Zanku.
Oh, you
And
okay.
Rama, yeah.
Okay.
So I think there should be, for any new feature networking, there has to be a testing plan, right? And that plan has to include security and telemetry.
Right.
Okay. I'm fine with that if people agree.
Well, but enforcing that process is not up to us. It's up to networking team, I think. I think we need to propose this to the process, but we're not the ones to enforce it. Maybe we should bring it to networking to just as a proposal.
Yeah, I think we should probably just plan to drop into the next networking meeting and have a brief summary of this typed up, and we can just talk about it for a minute there, and that should be enough, right? Or
So what exactly do you need? I mean, we just follow the APIs and the requirements. I mean, whatever test exists, they should test whatever is needed, no?
So I think that's true. So for example, if we specifically had tests for black holes, then even if it wasn't kind of fully consulted, those tests would have broken and we would have known, right? I suppose we did not have those tests.
That's partially true, Mandar. So what happens is you insert new filter chains, which will not be covered in the existing tests. And now you need to surface the black hole telemetry as the default metrics for those. That was the problem.
So yes, I think that's correct. That's the next level of detail. But behaviorally, we didn't have good coverage for black hole telemetry, right? That's what that is pointing to, right?
Black hole,
That's totally correct.
black hole telemetry or black hole in general? Because I'm pretty sure we have a test for fault injection and status codes.
Telemetry.
I'll be shocked if we don't. Not telemetry. I mean, we have tests for fault injection, and of course, the test could check if telemetry is collected. I mean, that's probably missing. I agree. But that's
But
again,
you're understanding, Costin, what I'm saying, right? So we constantly change the order of filter chains and we add new filter chains. And if
Yes.
in that you don't add the relevant block for black hole, there is no test that can catch it.
well, there are tests that can catch it. I mean, we are testing functionality. If we verify, we have tests for filter for fault injection in networking, and we have tests for telemetry.
So
What
I
we
think
don't have is a combination.
it's the fact that when you make changes to networking routing, all the policies and telemetry is preserved. We don't have tests for that.
Well, that's the test for telemetry, and policies should check that policy is enforced. I mean, we must have tests that policy
So
is
the problem with
enforced.
that is that these are new features in networking that we just not even aware sometimes in telemetry and policy.
Yeah.
That's we are not aware of the
Right, but
changes
it
in
doesn't
policy. Or
add features that don't respect existing policy and telemetry. Right?
Right. So in this case, the reason why it came out right this way is that we depended on certain implementation really of black hole, right? And when the way black hole was implemented changed from cluster to an inline 502 or whatever it is being sent back right now, maybe logically it is still a black hole, but it wasn't. And black holes specifically happen to be very important because they give a signal to people that something is not configured right. And that's why that telemetry is also important. And because of that change, but again, it still goes back to the fact that if we had if we had good test coverage for black hole telemetry, it would have failed in that case, and like it would have just stopped at resubmit. So I think that was the specific problem there.
Yeah.
The part about notifying and all that. I think that's always prone to
Yeah.
problems.
Notifying, it's about communication, and I don't think anyone, because that's usually done in PRs that are, I mean, it's not even discussed because it's considered an implementation change, either an optimization or something. We should not, I mean, there are hundreds of PRs that go in and we have no clue what's inside them. It's not really obvious that a PR like this will affect other components. In general, it's not a good idea to depend on the internal implementation details. That's another thing, because we have other implementation of XDS servers that may be used with envoys, and they may not generate exactly the same configuration. So that's
Right, and I think I've already started that discussion specifically about black holes and pass-throughs.
But the bottom line is,
can we define something that's more abstract and then have all the control planes adhere
yes,
to
that's a
that?
proper solution. That's a
Or
proper
is
solution.
there even more? Yeah, is there something kind of even more fundamental? But so far we just discussed, right? We have some route annotations.
Yeah, I mean,
There
but
is something more fundamental than that, then we can check that too.
it will take time to move it like at abstract level to XDS or whatever, but it will always be a situation when we add things that are just not there in the API surface. And it's going to be implementation detail.
Then add tests.
Make sure that the API is ahead of our implementation. That just doesn't happen, right?
So Costin, I think what we are suggesting is, yes, having tests make complete sense. And if tests break, it's a good signal to the PR submitter that you should go and fix some things. There still will be escapes because of the coverage. Is there a way to communicate that before the last day of the release?
So I am a bit confused. I don't want to. Wasn't this feature broken by telemetry v2? We had the 502 black hole stuff since last year, which was before we even had any black hole telemetry.
In this scenario, yes, it was. Previous scenarios where it was broken between 1.3 and 1.4, it was purely due to networking changes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. That's fair.
But if we find something only the last day before the release, it suggests that it's a feature doesn't have enough coverage and is not used by a lot of people, or nobody cares about it. I mean, it's just something that probably doesn't really matter. If it doesn't have any test, there's nobody using it, and we find out.
So okay, that's not true, right? So basically, V1 telemetry with black hole is being used, and this is really a feature gap of between V1 and V2 exposed because of kind of differing nature of how.
Mandar, was it broken by a change in networking in the last 2 weeks? Because in the last,
no, it wasn't.
No,
then what's the problem here? I mean, it's something that was in networking for quite a while, I suppose.
I'm saying, Costin, in general, there is a problem when the layout of how Pilot creates the filter chaining affects telemetry, and we are not able to catch it early on.
I know.
Right.
So I think there's a general issue, and I don't know that we're going to solve it, where just sometimes, like when you're focused on an area, we're not thinking about what the implication is for other areas as a project. I don't know how to solve that except everyone go to every meeting, which doesn't seem like a solution.
It will not help you.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, I go to all networking meeting and I still don't know about a lot of changes. I mean, you need to read all PRs and try to understand what they are doing, because otherwise.
Right. So I think we're all in agreement that it's not 100% working. We're just trying to figure out, is there a way to be better? So I think we have some small tactical things we can do, like the owner's files, better test coverage of features we know about. I just don't know how to.
I think there's like that propagate features from the working group to the high level. And as part of that transition, it has to be confirmed by all the working group.
Owners doesn't solve the problem either, because again, the problem is you need to review all PRs and to understand what they are doing. Only tests can solve this problem, really. I mean, you cannot communicate. There are optimizations that people do not really understand what implication. I don't understand my implication of my changes either.
The problem is
coverage. We don't know coverage.
Yeah, tests are sort of retroactive in some sense. Right?
It's not only retroactive. I mean, there are many ways to test it, even if it's, in the perf cluster or in some other stuff, but it's not, no human can understand all the PRs going into Istio and understand all the implication of some subtle change that is not humanly possible. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm stupid.
It's not about code, it's about the fact that like when we promote a feature to become an Istio feature, it should be tested to work with every other area. And that doesn't happen often, because as soon as it gets implemented in some area of Istio, it becomes Istio feature.
I completely agree. I mean, if this is a telemetry feature that needs to be promoted and it's a stable feature, then it has to have tests. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. That's what I was trying to say. That whatever was broken is probably not important because it doesn't have tests.
Whatever was trying to accomplish to the change the networking XGS layout, that should have been gated by the fact that it needs to make sure to work with every other area before it becomes default.
And it is by the fact that other areas have tests that will prevent any change that will for anything important. We cannot tell what things that you have working on and are not tested would be impacted by. How could we know?
Well, at the very least, there has to be a test that checks that policies, black hole telemetry.
How? I mean,
all that
should networking write tests for telemetry?
No, but it has to be some test from, I don't know who has to own it. Maybe both.
I think Quad, those tests have to be owned by telemetry. So
That's fine, but it has to be a step before we make it the default, because otherwise we're shipping features that are not fully working with everything else.
Yes, the step is to run the tests. I mean, once the tests are passing,
The fact that is saying you have already implemented the feature, gone through a design, and then you are fixing something rather than making the design which does not break things to begin with. That's the issue that we are trying to solve, right?
some issues, some problems cannot be solved really. I mean, it's just
okay. I think we're not we're kind of where we are. It looks like, but the take home is that what I think we lack, and I think that's what we should recognize first, is that conformance test for V2 telemetry, right? So that would have caught black hole cluster issue before Stono caught it. So I think that's kind of that's one. And then if we specifically want to have some communication vehicle about changing the layout of XDS and how that affects it, that's more of a process question and just a communication question. So I think that the only thing we can do is whoever is reviewing design docs and or PRs can just ping other people who you think might be affected if you don't know the impact yourself. But beyond that, I think we can't put any more process around it than that saying. More than the reviewers just be diligent and pull in other people when expected.
Well, the problem is that it doesn't affect the design, as Nar said. I mean, by the time it's already implemented, it's too late, right? Because the design is already approved.
but designs usually don't go into how XDS will lay out to look like.
Yeah.
I mean, we are just using whatever Envoy supports. If the Envoy supports a particular thing, it's anyway. Let's move to the next one. Hopefully, it's
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to solve this here. But maybe some thinking we can come back with a different proposal. So let's move on to simplifying Prometheus configuration. I'm going to resolve this comment. I'll let John, I think you and Costin have a...
Yeah, so some of the background is we're trying to simplify all the add-ons in the environments working group. And so especially with regards to like integrating with existing add-ons, like, you know, most people already have Prometheus running, whether it's the Prometheus operator, they install it from Helm, or they press some button on their cloud provider and they get Prometheus. And those have various ways of configuring them. And so we were looking into how we can configure those to support you know, the Istio scraping config and the TLS settings, which I think are the two main things we need to configure with Prometheus. And one easy way is to make it so that we don't actually need to configure anything special. Like almost all the setups for Prometheus out of the box will do like the scraping of prometheus.io/scrape labels. So the thought was we could add those to Istio, and then we don't need custom Istio scraping config because the standard out-of-the-box Prometheus will work. So that's the idea. It's very early. Like, this is not a design doc. This is an idea. The main challenge, I think, is that the user has metrics as well, and the sidecar has metrics. And Prometheus doesn't support like adding 2 ports to the annotation or something easy like that we can just have it scrape both of them. So the idea was that potentially we could do something like have the pilot agent be the actual stats endpoint, and it'll reach out to the Envoy, the application, and itself, get all the metrics for all of them, aggregate it into one response, and send it back to Prometheus. Something along this line. Like I said, this is not designed. It may not be feasible, just thoughts.
And as a side effect, this will also solve the security problems because this will be a port that is not intercepted by IP tables. So we have full control, and we can either say that this port is going to be plain text because there is nothing sensitive, security sensitive. Well, there are some privacy related data, but we can also specify a port, a TLS certificate that is configured in conjunction with Prometheus. So Prometheus can authenticate and do its own stuff without having to do the crazy stuff we are doing for SPIFFE and other support in Prometheus. So there are many benefits of this approach, including simpler everything, because we are going to be just like any other Prometheus applications that just annotate the pod and it works without having to do magic.
Do we have implementation of histogram accumulation in Go or
Of what?
histograms?
No, so I think that this aggregator is going to be pretty dumb, right? It's going to be
Oh
like
yeah,
a
super dumb.
text it's just going to merge text. It's not going to understand the semantics at all.
Yeah, that was my hope, if that works. I'm not
That's
sure if it
allowed,
works.
right? Prometheus doesn't expect you shouldn't have two metrics.
Well, as long as you
No,
don't,
there's one metric.
as long as there's no duplicate metrics.
You can't have an overlap between the application metrics and and the Istio metrics,
Yeah.
but otherwise you should be okay.
Yeah, as long as your namespace properly, you can actually just do append and send the response back. I mean,
Yeah.
it's actually
Yeah.
that the
No, the code is super simple. I mean, it's not really a problem. The problem is in the configuration we are generating for Prometheus, there are all kind of stuff that I don't think we understand. I think Doug probably understands them, but
Well, so what I was gonna say is like I think it starts simple, right? With append. What I worry about is when we decide we want to do something more than that, and we slowly develop into Prometheus ourselves.
Yeah, no, we should make sure.
No.
Okay.
So
what,
again,
why would we need that though?
Because like we want to filter out some stuff or allow people to restrict things.
Right.
It could quickly grow into something out of control. So as long as we
But-
are very clear about hiding it and
Yeah,
like
okay.
making it non-modifiable, I think.
today we're not doing that. I mean, today is just basically we just have some stuff to select the labels or whatever to get the endpoint data, and we just connect to Envoy and we get the data. I mean, we are not doing anything fancy on Envoy side. We just expose directly the Envoy endpoint, and if we aggregate with some additional data, it will not change the situation.
I actually we have so like this does give us another way. I mean, it's sitting there, so we can implement whatever the hell we want there. But it actually does give us
exactly what we're trying to stop.
right, and I understand like that's also the danger, but it's also the opportunity. So, for example, doing filtering, right, that doesn't require bootstrap changes.
No, it's a valid. I mean, we can implement this kind of feature. It's not out of the table.
Right now, right? At least the weights now. If and when we move to open census, all that will be magically solved. But
Actually, that's a good point. Can we use open census as an agent or a collector as a implementation?
yeah, so if you use open census agent locally, then now we can do real Prometheus-y things and
How is open census working with?
Off the shelf and then merge it into pilot agent and make it.
How does it work with Prometheus?
It just has an adapter that knows how to ingest Prometheus data.
in fact it can also send it to Stackdriver if you want.
I'm not opposed to the idea. I mean, it's if we can just link it and it can do the aggregation between Envoy application and our internal data, it's perfectly viable implementation.
It can do all of that.
So I'm
How
much
heavy-
happier if we just go with an open census agent or like a local Prometheus running on the pod than I am us trying to write something that has half of the functionality. And
No.
twice the bug,
So
I
no.
think we'd either do a very dumb one or something off the shelf.
Yeah,
My concern would be the off the shelf one is too
I
complicated
think
and doing too much.
one thing I want to mention, there is another aspect of this which is health reporting, which we need for Ingress and some other use cases. So this port will not only expose /metrics, will also expose /health, and will also allow ability to expose the health of the application or health of the Envoy or
That's fine.
Yeah, well, that's kind of already what we do, right, with the readiness probe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
Another thought
part
is,
is also already there.
could we
And
just
in
have,
fact, with the latest change of how we do readiness probe, we have kind of now we can like right. So
in the interest of efficiency, I mean, can we start with the simple, just combine the responses and in parallel have an effort to integrate open census?
we
I don't
could.
think they're exclusive. We can have both of them. It's not open census seems a bit heavier and may have some trade-offs, and the simple solution has a benefit of being simple.
So let's type up a doc because I feel like there are other bugs or a feature request where someone had asked for Envoy to do this sort of thing, to act as an aggregator for application telemetry and trace data being one of the things, metrics being another. And so like, there may be something we could do there too.
Yeah, we could implement an Envoy, actually. It's not that hard. If you really just have...
Niraj, you were saying something?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, most of the users of Prometheus are Kubernetes folks, and they all want to have sidecars now. Why can't Prometheus actually scrape two ports? I mean, I'm trying to understand, isn't that in their best interest?
Yeah, so I was looking into this a bit. Basically, so how the labels work, it's not actually like some native thing where it understands the Prometheus label. It's just doing like a metric rewrite, basically. It's like some crazy regex stuff that isn't that flexible.
Wait, that
So, I mean, I think it would be useful because it's very common
you are
pattern.
describing how we do it, or like you're just describing the standard, right?
The standard, yeah. So I mean,
And
that's the thing.
that's how
We have
we
these
are doing
Prometheus
it.
labels. Like it's not like Prometheus inherently knows that,
Right.
but I've never seen an installation of Prometheus that doesn't scrape those labels. Like I think pretty much every Prometheus setup does. And for the very few that don't, then they can configure it themselves, but this will help probably 99% of users.
So basically, exactly, right? So the basic problem is if you have an application port and then an Envoy port, you want Prometheus to scrape both.
Yeah.
I'm saying a feature request to Prometheus saying
So-
support multiple ports.
Niraj, if I would be Prometheus in their shoes, I would say that this doubles the load on Prometheus.
Who cares?
Because
you can have double the number of services.
Well,
I think they explicitly, I feel like there's a bug where they explicitly rejected this feature request,
Yeah.
which leads us into
for
this.
this reason, yeah.
So Niraj, you can do two scraping. I mean, that's what we do. You just
Yeah,
need
I
two
think
different scraping configs,
Right.
and that's not what is on
basically,
out of the box.
What we do is we say that the standard Prometheus way is under the control of the application,
I understand.
and we are doing this on something else. So now
Yeah,
we're
but-
saying,
This is a
We
fair
are-
point, though. We're
we-
doubling complexity
see.
for the clients, right?
But when you're talking about thousands of endpoints and large scale, it does matter. I mean, it's not.
Well, the problem is that you can manage complexity of Prometheus separately, right? So you could double the servers, and that's easier to handle than doubling the clients, right? Which we're doing now, because I'm not sure one is better than the other. It's like really-
Anyway, one thing is clear: we can do this combination easily, and we can ship it in 1.6 without any big problem if we go with the simple and maybe with open census. I don't think there is anyone has concern about viability of implementing it.
Well, we are maintaining more code now, right? I mean, like
A bit.
so I think that if we put bounds on the feature set and the complexity of the code, so if the entirety of the code is get response from X, get response from Y, concatenate and send it back, and that's 10 lines of code, and we kind of commit ourselves to not adding
You
more
know, Pilot was like 10 lines of code.
It's very simple. It's very simple. I mean, combining it's clear, and we can do it quickly. And then for anything else, open census. So whoever wants another feature, they should add open census sidecar and have an option to include.
how will it
open
work
census.
when the scrape interval is different? For
Yeah,
It's not.
Is Open Census scraping it on demand, or is it doing its
I
own
think
thing?
it has
where-
configuration.
If it's not on demand, then it may be kind of funky because it will change how things are. But
But
the
that's
simple
from-
approach won't. That should be fine.
But we should use whatever the application scraping is. I mean, whatever its configuration is for application scraping is good enough for an employee as well, I suppose. I mean, it's user control.
That's actually not, that might have some consequences, right? I mean, if someone is faster and then the other one, then you
Exactly.
pressure on that one.
I think
Sure, there's an escape path for that. I mean, if they want this kind of fine gains, they can do it. They can take the pain of configuration, but we want for most cases to work out of box without any pain, really.
So I think this idea has merit, right? I think we agree that there would be a benefit. I really do think the best next step is someone to flesh out a fuller doc, and we can hash out the pros and cons there, right? Like,
Yeah. Especially including open census on both client and server, because you can also install an open census collector if you, as one component. But
Okay, but a small option and a prototype that is verifying that it works probably will be even more useful because we don't know if
Yeah,
it
I
really
think
works or
both
don't.
would be useful. A prototype would be useful because I could see this happen. Someone, we go through the full design doc and then we try and implement it and realize it doesn't work for some reason.
And as a design doc will get as usual out of scope, will become kind of rocket science for concatenating three files basically.
Yes. We can use cell to concatenate the.
WASM. You are.
Probably, yeah,
we
you
can
probably have Envoy.
You definitely have Envoy do it
Yeah.
and save yourself adding another sidecar. But.
No, sure. I mean, so let's separate how we implement it on client side, either a concatenation in agent and how we go forward. It doesn't matter who concatenates it. If we agree that it's an annotation and it's only one,
This
let's.
wouldn't be a separate sidecar. That would be just in pilot agent.
Yeah, but logically it's another
Yeah.
service site running. Which
Sure,
is
yeah.
in process.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whoever implements it gets to choose. I mean, if multiple people implement it, we have multiple implementation, we can choose the best.
The only thing, can I
Okay.
make one suggestion? Rather than looking at open sensors, which can have a limited life, it'd be better to look at open telemetry. It's not stable
Right.
yet,
Yes.
but
Correct.
in a couple of months, it probably will be stable. So.
Is there, Gary, I haven't followed the transition from OpenSensus to OpenTelemetry very closely. Is there a transition plan for the code base, or is it a completely fresh code base and configs?
From what I've seen, it's quite fresh. So they have ported some parts, but then they've updated it to fit in with a new set of specifications. So so it is different.
I think that's perfect for us because that means we can go with a simple concatenation now, and whenever this is ready, we switch to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it does have Prometheus receivers and exporters. So if you wanted to do just a prototype, then I think it would be suitable now.
It may make the prototyping pretty easy. Config level prototyping.
It's much easier to manage.
So who owns the doc?
Yeah, who wants to own it?
I think I think someone from the telemetry should own it, and like get a quick prototype going.
Okay. I'll put
can
my
help out
name
as
in as
well
a
if-
placeholder, just because I'm going to start looking at some Prometheus stuff in the next week. But welcome to other suggestions or people volunteers.
On the simpler part, anyone objects to adding the annotation to IstioD itself?
The Prometheus scrape annotation?
Yeah.
No.
That should be
Okay.
there.
Probably want to update the Grafana dashboard as well. Actually, all of this will require changes to the dashboards.
Yes, and that's the second part. How do we handle distribution of Grafana dashboards for Istio? Can we put them in the market, whatever is the downloader's place they have, so we don't have to?
Way back in 1.1 or 1.2, I was publishing them to Grafana's dashboard location, but we never got that automated so that it would happen at every release.
I can take that on if it would be useful.
Yeah, if someone wants to look into that, that'd be a good thing to do for sure.
Yeah, you can mark me down as owner for that.
Okay.
And hopefully it's not absurdly hard.
I think the only trick is like getting the right permissions.
Yeah, do you still have like the Istio account
I
credentials?
hopefully save that somewhere that we can find them.
Okay.
Just check it in.
Yeah. I almost did it because I was like, yeah, whatever.
Back to the beginning of this discussion, can someone just remind me what the big win is? Because I think I missed kind of the whole motivation for this
Yeah,
whole
so
thing.
the big win would be that you can install Istio, which is just the control plane and sidecars. You don't have any of the add-on stuff. And you already have a Prometheus running in your cluster. It just works out of the box. You start scraping Istio things. The dashboard, once we put it on the Grafana hub, you don't need to install our Istio Grafana or try and get all the config maps mounted, all that sort of stuff. You just press like the import dashboard or whatever the button's called and things just work, and we don't need to manage the installation of all these add-ons.
So basically, for observability, you need to do stuff.
Yeah, so this would mean that you don't have to do stuff for observability, and that stuff may be configuring your Prometheus or installing our own Prometheus, which is kind of like a demo install, but people then try and use it in production, and then they get mad at us, and then we have to maintain it. All sorts of issues with that.
Okay, so you would, let's say you want to use Kiali, you might have to then install a Prometheus in addition to installing Istio, and then install Kiali. Those are all be separate.
That's a possibility, yeah. So we are exploring how we can reduce the amount of stuff we manage in the Istio installation. Ideally, from my point of view, we just install, the one Istio control plane and set up, the gateways and sidecars. The add-on doesn't necessarily need to be bundled with that because, all the other vendors, Prometheus, whatever, Kiali, have their own way of installing it. So we do, there's ongoing work to see how, like, for the people that are just trying to demo things and they just want everything, like how we manage that. But I think it's absolutely doable. So that's what we're working on in environments. That's kind of the context. It's obviously a cross working group concern as well.
So in a production environment, I don't expect anyone should be running our installation of Prometheus. That would be crazy. So we hope that anyone understands, and unfortunately many people do not understand this. It's not very clearly documented that ours is a toy, and so we want to integrate with what people use in production, and that's our main benefit. That it will benefit people who run Istio in production.
Yeah. So I think with 1.5 we're going to be advising people to run a Istio-focused Prometheus as a sort of aggregation point that federates into their production Prometheus. Mm-hmm. I haven't finished the docs on that or started them really, but so yeah, we need to make sure we're all in sync on that. But
do we want to do this? Is it something that is part of the Istio installation, or is it something that some advanced users may want to do?
For using telemetry V2, currently there's a cardinality explosion.
Yeah,
but isn't this something that also implies how they scrape their application? Because with this proposal, there is no cardinality difference between Prometheus scraping the applications, which has cardinality, how many applications you have, and telemetry V2. We are not doubling. That was the discussion we had before.
So that's what Doug was saying for 1.5, I think. For 1.6, we have to come up with a better, clever solution. With V2, there is no cardinality explosion, whether we go with this approach or not.
Sorry, I meant what is the cardinality explosion? Because if Prometheus is scraping 1,000 applications, after this change, will still scrape the 1,000 applications.
It's not about this at all. It's about mixer V1 versus V2. That in the other case, you're scraping one mixer instance, and then in V2, you're scraping 1,000 pods, which have some label for, they have like the IP address or pod name.
You mean because some pods do not have the annotations, they are not, don't expose application data? Okay, that's valid.
Yes, that's why they're not scraping the application.
Yeah, but I would think that it's a generic problem for Prometheus to solve. How do they scale up?
And there's a generic or a way to solve it with Prometheus itself. I just want to make sure we synchronize the messaging across.
Yeah. Okay.
And just so Jay, one more point. So the customers that we deal with currently, there's a lot of angst around when they get their own Prometheus, they don't automatically get Istio metrics. So if we do solve this, then as soon as they add Istio or Aspen Mesh, the same Prometheus will now have Istio metrics.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big win. It just reduces our support cases.
No, I can see that aspect of it. If there was some way to still have some sort of demo profile, it would be very useful, I think, because it can be very good for production, but it just makes things a little harder potentially for people trying to test things out.
For demo, we can just have a shell script that is deploying the Prometheus operator, whatever they recommend by default, and just use it. But it will still be simpler because you just use whatever instructions Prometheus has with a script or whatever, and then we don't have to customize or have deltas between, and have to learn our way of doing things versus the official way.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to ask about or raise, Jay? Or
Not on this topic, not really. I mean,
okay.
we'll wait and see how it goes. But we just want to make sure that obviously being from the Chiali team, we're curious about what's going on. We just wanted to make it still as easy as possible for Chiali to work with Istio, right?
Absolutely. Okay. The next thing I wanted to raise in this working group, and we're sort of running out of time, but we have enough time, is I noticed a large number of GitHub issues and things on discussion forums, and I've been asked directly on Slack a lot about policy-related issues. So IP whitelisting not working, rate limiting concerns, people having issues with all the different mixer adapters for policy. And that is not getting any attention. And I don't know what we want to recommend or do for 1.5 or how we want to change course for 1.6, whether or not it should be prioritized. So I just wanted to get sort of thoughts from this working group on what to do with that. And I open the table to any thoughts.
When you say no attention, is it getting no attention from Istio maintainers, you mean?
Right. Like the code is sort of languishing. These issues are staying open. It's not been a high priority to fix or address them or even answer customer concerns. And so we're in sort of a limbo state waiting for V2 to start working on policy in V2. Like, what do we want to do? What was our messaging going to be? How should we answer these issues in the next 3 months?
I mean, from a community point of view, right? I mean, maybe it's different here, but for any product we have, when you have a new functionality coming in, you want to make sure the old one has bugs, you fix them, but you don't add new functionality in the old use case or the old mixer V1. And then you say, we'll fix bugs, but for the new functionality you want, you have to move to V2.
And I think we agree in principle. I guess I'm observing the reality of the bugs aren't getting fixed. And so I don't know how to incentivize that, how to prioritize that.
So Doug, you're saying V1, these are V1 bugs?
Right, with like rate limiting and IP whitelisting and things that only exist in the V1 world.
So we are deprecating mixer in 1.5, right? Which means that like bug fixes are still okay now. So for example, I think Nupur or someone just recently had a bug fix in mixer. I think you had one very recently. Are you talking about just prioritization of that?
Yeah. So, and it comes that there was a PR changing docs on the website, and one of the things I was saying is maybe we don't advertise policy on the website for a while. Maybe we how do we reflect the reality that it is a P2 for the large majority of contributors, but is being started to pick up and you're seeing usage ramp up by users in the user community. I just feel uncomfortable with the disparity between number of incoming issues versus number of closed issues.
This is open source, right? So we should encourage them to submit PRs if they want to fix them and maintain it, right? I mean, I'm just trying to say that if your company needs it that bad, at some point you need to contribute, right?
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I don't have the answer. It was a feeling I got that
I get it.
the rate was increasing and we're headed into a bad place. So
There could be a dog that describes for the transition, though. I mean, some of this is already ready. Like the authorization policy can do a lot of stuff. So, I mean, it should be probably an item to document how to transition.
okay, that's a good idea. Okay, well, I don't want to beat this to death. It's just something I'd noticed and I wanted to get comments on. And the other thing, the last, which probably was something we should have spent the most amount of time on, is we don't have any roadmap items for 1.6. So I linked to the extensions roadmap doc, and then it's blank. So
Lucky you.
yeah, so I don't think that that's going to work on Friday when the TOC goes to review the roadmap. So I encourage everyone to sort of add things that they think are important for 1.6 in the extensibility and telemetry areas and policy 2. And I will try and do a pass Thursday night to get this in some shape for sharing. But yeah, as you can see, and we actually did a pretty good job with our 1.5 P0s, but I think there's other stuff that's bubbled up. So maybe just take a look at that and start adding content for 1.6, and then we can sort. Is there anything that we know that we should do for 1.6, by the way, while we're here in the last?
Yeah, I think the request classification is one big one. I think, yeah, we can just go through the issues. We have kind of filed issues whenever.
TCP support for V1, V2, right?
Which support
Right.
for V2?
Yeah, TCP metrics for Mixer V2.
That's in, wait.
You mean improving them? Because that should be in 1.5, right?
Yeah,
Oh, it's already in 1.5.
1.5, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I didn't realize that.
I think we need the black hole. Speaking of,
well, black hole, we are going to make
Making that a blocker, right?
work for 1.5.
oh, really? Okay. So I guess everything here is going to be moved to one.
I think what we are saying is we need testing. So that should be the higher priority item for 1.6.
Yeah, so I think telemetry conformance testing.
That's a better way to put it. Yep.
I'd still like to see the request service information make it into the fast path or default telemetry.
Yeah. And that's sort of, like subsets and other things are related.
There was the old issue about rationalizing egress telemetry to put into the host, and
Yeah.
I don't know what happened there, but I mean, I think it still needs to work.
How about distribution of WebAssembly from users to extend Envoy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
So I also have another question around TLS related telemetry, which I was supposed to do for 1.5, but with all the Envoy PRs got stuck. I couldn't make progress. Is that still an issue?
I mean, with auto MTLS, we hope not.
Exactly. That's why I was asking. Maybe, do you know the usage of auto MTLS? None of our customers use it, just being very honest.
Wait, your customers don't use MTLS?
Auto MTLS.
Oh, auto MTLS. Well, it was opt-in, right? Now with 1.5, with 1.5, it is not opt-in anymore, no?
I don't know. There was a lot of debate about it. That's correct, Jacob? Okay. Is that an issue then with auto MTLS?
Yeah, I think we should plus someone from TLS saying that, yeah, if everything is auto, then there is nothing to report.
Wait, well, I mean, don't you actually want to see more if it's auto?
Right.
I don't understand.
Some way validating it's done. Yeah.
I agree with that, Quad, actually. You still want to see the state, right? The end state, whether encryption was used or not.
Any permissive for auto actually makes it more important to see telemetry for TLS.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There is the rate limiting story.
Yeah.
Bootstrap config customization. I know Quad has been talking to Jacob about it. How do we do that easily? And is that part of this group or networking? I don't know.
Probably not networking, but yeah, I don't know how to. There's a lot of stuff in Bootstrap that's cross-functional.
I mean, Bootstrap, external Bootstrap generation is the general work item, right?
Yeah. Which working group does it belong to?
I think that probably belongs to networking.
Okay. So then the piece which is customizing.
But okay. So I would say that yes, the networking people should be involved and everyone else should be involved. If we need customizations for telemetry to start with, then we can try with it. I mean, that's what I'm getting. We just have to make sure that everyone is aware and like on board with whatever is being proposed.
Okay, so basically what we should do then is for 1.6, customizing V2 telemetry should be the high level objective. And then as part of that, customizing Bootstrap has to be done.
Right, yeah.
Is that done like at runtime through some API or?
Yep.
I see.
Hopefully.
Got it. So
yeah, I mean, it's also a work item to get rid of it altogether in Envoy.
Yeah. I think that the bigger work item is to replace that whole jumble with open census.
That is open-ended.
Yeah.
That's.
There's some progress. There's some progress actually. So but I don't know if it's gonna land it in time.
So Doug, it feels like there's some relative priority here. We can quickly do that if you want. Like customizing V2 telemetry really has to be higher up if you want people to start using it.
Well, so there's like different levels of customizing telemetry. I was thinking about this, right? There's stuff you can do with Prometheus config itself. That gives you some way. The only thing we can't do is introduce new data where there's not data.
Yeah. I'm talking about that one, introducing new data.
Well, there's like various methods. Like for example, the tracing is configured via Bootstrap. So if you want to adjust that, like you have to restart Envoy. Yeah. So that depends on the Bootstrap distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we thought the testing was at P0 as well.
It should be. Looks like it.
And request path classification jumped up. Is there anything else that we think is?
I think we need to make progress on the extension API.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Is that P0 or P1? Who is asking for it from a user point of view?
So the issue now is that so far we have been sort of shielded because our things were not configurable and we didn't really expose any configuration artifacts. But as we are going to expose configuration artifacts. So the goal for 1.6 is that we cannot continue to configure these extensions with Envoy Filter API in the way it exists. And the reason is Envoy Filter API already has issues of like not being able to order things properly. Like we have had to jump through hoops even now. And there is the extension API, whatever doc that goes through the details of what's missing and all that. So we need to tie that and actually like deliver it in 1.6 because I don't think we can continue just supporting Envoy Filter in perpetuity. It was fine for now to get started and actually to deliver function, but anything more than that. So one of the reasons why we chose to, even though it is possible now to change configuration of metrics, it's not front and center. It's not documented, right? I think Quad documented on a wiki somewhere. The reason for hiding that is kind of it's like a speakeasy.
So Mandar, quick question though. Will that API belong to networking or policy and telemetry?
It's an extensions API, so I guess it belongs to extensions.
But then
actually
heavily on pilot.
It's like TOC level, I think. It has to be reviewed by TOC.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. Of course, this API will have to go through TOC, and Louis has been involved.
Okay.
Kind of, yeah.
There's just one other request that we have from our customers, which again we currently solve through Envoy Filter, but we will like a high-level API in Istio, which is adding and customizing tracing headers.
Okay.
Basically, being able to add a tracing header, which can report it in the spans based on incoming request headers. So tracing tags, I should have said.
Okay.
Is that part of Envoy features or is something new?
You don't need it. It's already part of Envoy API now. And we can use Envoy Filter API to add it, but it will be good to have an Istio API.
Right. Okay. So more first class API. Okay. I think we should add that. It is going to be an interesting discussion as to where does it belong, because I think that having it belong to an extension probably makes sense. I see why maybe you extensions so far have been focused on filters and filter-like things. So you raise a very interesting question. Yeah, it definitely needs.
It's a per route, right? So it's per virtual service sort of thing, just like black hole. We need
right, but the question is, do we not? So if we say that tracing is a fundamental part of the whole thing, then we can just stick it there. But at some point, we have to start saying that, oh, the stuff is in extensions, and we cannot just keep on adding more stuff. But maybe tracing is so fundamental that we put it in virtual service and no problem. So, whoever is typing, can we add this also to the list?
What would you like me to add?
Tracing configurability. I mean, we have some API, and Doug, you have that one doc. I don't know how. So I don't know if it covered this part or not. I don't think it did fully, right?
I mean, so the feedback I got back at the time, and then Gary was on this effort as well, was that we were explicitly directed away from doing anything new, and we're told to use Envoy filters. We can re-raise that and resurface sort of previous attempts to have a full-featured API, but.
So Doug, I'm with you. So the progression I was told by Louis and Sriram is, if you use Envoy filter and there are enough customers who need it, they will make it a first-level citizen. Level.
I was told the same thing, but I was given a different impression. But yeah, I'm happy to pursue it. I don't think people are very happy with. People who use it aren't very happy with the suggestion of using Envoy filters. So
they're not. And I'll get some of our users or customers if they are willing to file a GitHub issue, so we can drive it through that.
Yeah, and Stono has some issues related to this as well.
So I would say that okay, I think a better way to go about that that particular problem is to add those requirements, and then we can decide whether those requirements are better satisfied by a more abstract extensions API, or we need the detailed XDS patch API, which is what on-what filter is, rather than framing it as we want on-what filter.
Right. So, I mean, yeah.
That's fair.
We can talk about this another time, but I mean, like, part of the issue was that a lot of the control ended up looking exactly like the segments of Envoy config. So it wasn't really abstract in any real sense. But we can talk about that as we move forward. Okay. Well, we're past time, so I think we should probably stop.
All right.
I'll take it past this and then add people in Friday morning, maybe Thursday night, depending on my days, to get final approval or edits on this.
Thank
All right.
you. Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.